Get started with Cerbos directly in your web browser without having to run and deploy anything on your machine. Let's find out how. Yes, hello, welcome to another Cerbos tidbit, and today we're going to be talking about the Cerbos playground. If you're just getting started with Cerbos and you want to experiment with prototyping, put your different policies and trying different conditions and rules, you can use this web environment to try things directly in browser without having to actually run and deploy anything on your machine or in your infrastructure. So let's go and have a look. So you can find the Cerbos playground at play.cerbos.dev, and then you're presented with this page. Here we give you the options to create a new environment. You can go and look at some different resources, or even go and look directly at a example project which contains policies for different use cases. We're actually going to go and look at an expenses system resource here to kind of demonstrate the power of the playground. So this environment, again, runs directly in your browser, and it gives you a very sort of IDE-esque feel to how you can interact and start writing your policies. On the left, you have your files. So here, very simple file structure. We have some policy files defined. We have some test data defined. We even have a README which you can write in Markdown. Obviously here in the middle is the editor, and on the right is kind of the action section. So here you can define different principals or different users directly inside of the browser. So here we have different roles. We have Frank, we have Simon, and below it shows you kind of the attributes and the roles that are assigned as if you were sending a request to Cerbos. And down here we have different resources, so different examples of an expense resource, and you can see below as I change it, they have different attributes. And the other thing you're probably noticing is we're getting this real-time feedback of the different permissions or different actions that are defined for an expense resource policy. And as I change the different roles, we can actually see that real-time result of what the result would be if you ask Cerbos for that particular user and that particular resource for the different actions. And this is a live environment. We can go and actually change and modify these policies and change the logic. So we can actually take away maybe this condition, and you would get that real-time feedback of what that impact would be. So if you're in an environment where you are testing and changing and really evaluating how you should best model your policies, this environment gives you the ability to write policies and get that real-time feedback. And it's not just writing policies and getting the feedback. There's a few other features in here. So I mentioned these test files. One of the big benefits of Cerbos is you can actually do test-driven development to how you generate and define your policies. So you can actually define from your business logic, be it in a spreadsheet or some doc or a Jira ticket, what your permissions should be, and then you'll get the feedback directly inside of this environment as you go and change things. So actually, if we say for this particular sales role, Sally should actually be allowed to approve the expense, we get feedback in this bottom panel that tells you which tests have failed. So Cerbos is actually running inside the playground and gives you that real-time feedback as if you were running your tests locally. And so a really nice way of quickly evaluating and testing things. As well as tests, we also have the feedback. So if you are writing a policy and then maybe there's a typo or such, it gives you that real-time feedback here of what's missing or validation areas. You can go and fix it, and you even get nice IntelliSense support and autocomplete directly inside of the editor. A couple other bits of pieces out. If you're making use of auxiliary data, for example, passing JWT token, you can define that down here on the right. And you can even see what the request and the response for the currently selected principal and resource is inside of this panel. So if you wanted to see what data would be going over the wire to your Cerbos instance, you can see that right here. The final piece to call out before I go on is this try the API button. And first time you click this, it says, hey, you need to log in before you can actually save this. So with these environments, they are persisted. So you can log in with a Google account or a GitHub account. I'm just going to use my Google account for now. And now this is an environment that you can either duplicate it, save it. If you're looking at a template, you can copy it to your own environment and have like your own fork to experiment with. But once it is saved, you now have a URL that you can actually share with people. So pull that down a bit. You can see this is a unique URL for this particular environment. You can then share that with your team, and they can see an experiment inside of your policies inside of this instance. And now if we click that try the API button, this now gives you a very simple demo Cerbos instance with the policies that are defined in your browser deployed to them. So what this means, if you're rapidly iterating or prototyping something, you can write all your policies inside of the Cerbos playground, and then behind the scenes, Cerbos deploys an instance of those policies. Big red flag, as noted by the red text here. This is not designed for production. You shouldn't be making authorization checks over the internet. That's going to be slow. Some questionable potential security concerns there as well. But if you're just testing and evaluating Cerbos or want to quickly test something, the demo instance that Cerbos deploys is perfectly capable of handling that. And not only that, we actually do a lot of code generation for you inside the playground. So depending on your language, for example, JavaScript, it will go and actually generate the code. You can just copy and paste out of the playground into your application and get going up and running very quickly. And we have that for most of our SDK languages in here as well. As I said, not designed for production, but great way of getting going again without having to run anything locally. So now you're happy with your policies, you've authored them, you shared them, you've tested them locally, you want to actually go and deploy them to your stack. You can very simply go and export it, and we provide you an export flow. It gives you a zip file of your policies, as well as the commands and configuration you need to actually get those up and running. There's a lot more on the playground. This is just a very quick run through. Hopefully you found it interesting. As I said, go to play.cerbos.dev to experiment. There's no need to sign up or register unless you want to save your profile. So it's very easy to kind of get going and up and running and testing ideas for how you would deploy Cerbos. Thank you very much. See you in the next one.